There we go.
Hello, welcome to the Political Metrics News. We are on the election eve here tonight, November 4th of 2024, and we have Mike Bates back on the show with us. He's been in Alaska here for a little bit this year. We got Scott Miller over here in Pensacola, and I'm Greg Fink out of Gainesville. And Mike, tell us a little bit about where you've been.
Well, I've been up in Alaska on assignment. Just got back to Florida last week, but I'm here now and looking forward to doing what I do in the Sunshine State.
Now, you voted already, right?
I voted on Tuesday of last week, yeah.
How do you vote? Early voting or absentee?
Oh, I was going to say I filled out the ballot. And actually, you want to hear something interesting? I filled out 2 ballots, and they both got counted. Filled out 2 ballots at the polling place and put them both in the tabulator.
Republicans do it that way nowadays.
All right. I should not let this drag out. In fact, I shouldn't even have said that because this can be edited now to completely misrepresent what happened. I did that in 2020 as well, just so you know.
Right. I remember that.
I have a friend she's 60 something years old. She has been 100% blind since birth. So I drove her to the early voting site. She filled out the affidavit, or at least signed the affidavit saying, oh yeah, Mike's going to fill out my ballot. I had to sign an affidavit saying, yeah, I know her. Yeah, I promised to write down what she says to write down and all that. So yeah, it is accurate that I filled out 2 ballots and put 2 ballots into the tabulator, and they will both be counted. That is accurate. But the rest of the story is that the second ballot wasn't mine, and neither were the votes on it.
So, interestingly, I heard a story this week about a Chinese national, I want to say somewhere in the up in the Northeast, who registered and cast a vote, and they caught him. But the problem is that because these votes are anonymous, there's no way to take his vote back. So it's going to count.
Oh, sure. Yeah. After it's put in the mix, you can't separate them. I mean,
and that's what was up the can of worms that Scott and I were talking about over the weekend here in Alachua County, is that we have all these college students here, and they're all changing their vote or updating their address on the last day of election, and they can even do it tomorrow on election day. But and they're updating their addresses and everything. But if they could have, I think Mike and I talked about this earlier today. They could have voted in a different county in Florida, because you have to be a Florida resident in order to do that. They could have voted in a different county in Florida, maybe the day before, maybe the week before, and the whole system's not going to catch up to them for weeks down the road while they're influencing elections in 2 or 3 different counties at the same time. Or, there's no verification. Because some guy might have a laptop to verify that their address is real, or some guy might not have a laptop. And then, we asked the elections office, how are they going to count that ballot? Is it going to be counted as a provisional ballot or a regular ballot? They said, well, it really depends. It's really up to the county. And I called Tallahassee about this. And Tallahassee said each county has their own way of counting and verifying the address changes. Some, if they have a laptop or an internet access available, they can verify right there. And if they don't, it's supposed to be a provisional ballot. Now, some places don't. And it should have been a provisional ballot, but it was still counted as a regular ballot. And like the guy up north, once it's thrown into the system, you can't really take it back. And so you have a lot of these here ballots that could easily be, fraudulent. For once they're thrown in, how are you going to prove which one's fake or which one's wrong?
Well, they are both going to get counted, and I actually don't have a problem with updating an address like that. These are not new registrations. You have to have been registered in the state of Florida, and then I think it's a 30-day deadline to do that. But if you then move, you can update your address and therefore your polling location, even if it's in a completely different county or end of the state. That's perfectly okay under Florida law. Now, I would like to see something added to that says you also have to have moved within the last 30 days.
Right.
I don't think you can move a year ago and then on election day say, oh, by the way, I live here now, let me vote. I don't think it should be that. But it is that. No, it is that.
The reality is a lot of college kids don't just move all their addresses. Their driver's license still has their home address or where they're from and everything.
Exactly.
So they don't have all that information. And the reality here is, most colleges are slant a little bit to the left, in the United States of America. And so, so with all the slanting to the left, is a really good way for them to go ahead and put the fix in on a very local level, and it can really throw the apple cart in
Well, let me
numerous
tell you
different
how
ways.
that's happening on the college campuses, Greg. The Democrat Party, or at least left-leaning groups, organizations of
Yeah,
whatever it is, whether it's
like a pizza party
Socialists
or
for
something.
America or who, it doesn't matter. Various left-leaning groups, they have pizza parties, free pizza on campus. Well,
Exactly.
that'll attract some college students. And what do you get when you get there? Well, you get your voter registration card, you fill it out, or you get your address update card and you fill it out. And you got all this free pizza to do it, right? And then they do the same thing on election day. Hey, coming down here, free pizza party. Hey, time to vote. Who needs a ride to the polls or whatever? And there's so many places that are on campus now that are able to vote. And that's all done by design because most college students are going to vote for the Democrat candidate. It's just the way it is. It's a promise of the forgiveness of the student loans and the whole plethora of left-leaning giveaways that attract young people. It was Winston Churchill who said, if you are young and conservative, you have no part. If you are old and liberal, you have no brain. Well, these college students are still young, which means they're liberal.
But the biggest problem I have, though, is that Florida has no standard that it follows all the counties on how they need to be counted or handled. I mean, it's basically leaving it up to each county. And basically, each county's supervisor of elections, no offense, a lot of them are not all that unbiased.
Right. But look, what we're debating are things that are legal. They're 100% legal. All right. And the things we're talking about, there's no law against it. What is going on in Alachua County is a third-degree felony. That's the thing that people need to be focusing on, not this stupid, not this debate on whether or not
it's that. Scott, explain what's going on because we talked about this earlier. I don't think that's been discussed yet on this podcast. So say what's going on so that the viewers know.
No, I'm getting there. that was part of my transition away from the thing that I think is low risk to a thing that is actually a way that elections are manipulated, which is in Alachua County, the supervisor of elections staff, and to some degree the supervisor herself may be involved, I don't know, is allowing candidates and the general public to come in while they physically count ballots for some reason, because they're not supposed to be doing that right now either. And then they tell these people where they are in the count process, where the early voting and where different candidates are. And that is a way for you to know as a candidate, oh, I need to go and do this. And while if it was just they're getting election intelligence, that'd kind of be one thing. But the fact of the matter is, the danger is it lets you manipulate the election. It's less than what the candidates can do and what the people behind the scenes can do to say, oh, this guy's getting too much. We got to figure out a way to marginalize these votes. Like tomorrow may be the day that suddenly we've got a roadblock up in a precinct that we expect to be coming in tomorrow or whatever. There's all sorts of ways. But there's a reason that it is a third-degree felony under Florida law. Black letter law. It's not ambiguous about it. No one at the elections office can talk about what the results are before the close of the polls on election day.
Okay, and now I can't speak to the veracity of that allegation. I don't know what's going on in the Alachua County Supervisor's Elections Office at all. But I will say that tabulating, or at least putting those ballots into the tabulator, that's required. You are supposed to do that. You're required to do that on a daily basis. And you report how many ballots got counted on a daily basis. But what should not be counted is the total. In fact, they're not even supposed to know the total. The machine should know it, but the humans operating the machines should have no way of knowing what the tally is other than how many ballots were counted. But how many went for candidate A, how many went to candidate B? They're not even supposed to know that number. It's not even supposed to exist in a manner that a human could know. But if they're citing numbers, I'm really shocked because how would they know? But here's something else that's equally illegal. If they're saying, hey, I've been inserting ballots all day and man, so-and-so's getting an overwhelming majority, well, that's illegal too. they're supposed to be sworn to absolute secrecy on everything they observe as far as how people voted. So if that's really happening,
well,
that needs to be reported to the Elections
is...
Integrity Office in Tallahassee, and it needs to be investigated. And if there's some truth to it, there's some serious felonies going on.
That is the specific felony that I'm talking about.
Right. And the whole idea of being sworn to secrecy is just totally ridiculous. I mean, the statute says anybody that tells the public, and say in Florida, anybody in the public, there are no secret meetings in public in Florida. Okay? There are no I mean, everything's in the sunshine here. Okay? So, I mean, as soon as they tell them, they're telling the public. And then what are they going to do? Tell Piggy? I mean, these people are on the ballot. You know? They're not off the ballot. They're on the ballot. They're candidates. What are you going to do? A pinky swear, a blood pact, or because the affidavit, they don't give a fuck who's about.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, how do they know the count? I mean, are they saying, gee, so-and-so seems to be getting a lot of votes, or are they saying so-and-so is getting this specific number of votes? Because if it's the latter, I'm shocked that's even possible.
Well, they're actually looking at them and actually seeing who's voting for what, and who's scanning in, and who's filling in what. And then they're actually
you've got multiple teams
them.
Counting these stacks of ballots. It's not just one guy doing it. Were they keeping an individual tally and then adding it all up at the end of the day and then announcing it to people?
There's two people doing it, actually, 2 or 3, yeah.
But there's multiple, well, it depends on the size of the county. There's multiple tabulators going on with multiple people sticking these ballots in there to count them. I'm just shocked that it's even procedurally possible.
Let me read you the statute, because it's very short. And it says, any supervisor, deputy supervisor, canvassing board member, election board member, or election employee, that includes the volunteers, because even though you're not getting paid, you are still considered an employee, who releases the results of a canvassing or processing of vote-by-mail ballots prior to the closing of the polls in that county on election day commits a felony of the 3rd degree. That's the entire statute.
No, the statute's very clear. I'm questioning whether it's really happening, because I'd be shocked if it's really happening. I'm not saying it isn't. I don't know. I don't live in Alachua County. I'm not in the supervisor's office, but come on.
I mean, the average canvassing board meeting has around like 4 or 5 people there. Out of 4 or 5 people, 3 or 4 of them are all saying the same thing.
Well, if there's some truth to that, it needs to be investigated. And if it happens, it needs to be prosecuted.
It's been ran out of the flagpole and everything else. It's been sent to Tallahassee and everything. But we just have no idea
doing something about
what the veracity of it is.
Tallahassee was equally shocked.
Okay. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, so I mean, that's just here in this little county here in Florida. I mean, we have no idea what kind of shenanigans are going on all over the place. And so, I mean, that's one hesitation, that's one hiccup I have in, any kind of landslide is that type of stuff. Donald Trump goes, but I mean, as far as that being said, I think electorally, I think he's going to run away with this whole election here.
Well, the feeling that I have is that's going to be the case. Now, but just because that's the vibe that I get around people, I don't, in 2016 and 2020, I had this kind of, Trump as the president's a pipe dream kind of feeling that I don't have this time.
In 2020, there was no energy whatsoever. COVID destroyed the whole thing.
Yeah, and that's great, Scott, but where are you hanging out with people? Are you hanging out with voters in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Michigan and Georgia and Arizona and Nevada? Or are you hanging out with voters in Florida? Florida's going red. I'd wager $1,000 on that.
Right, yeah.
What are those states doing? Coin toss. I don't know.
Well, it's hard to say, but when I read the national news, I rarely read the entire article, because 9 times out of 10, before I get 10% of the way through there, I already know what the whole article is going to say. And I'll read some of them all the way through, but I'm never surprised. Once you get past the headline and the first couple of paragraphs, the rest of the article is just someone bloviating. And there are ways that these people talk that lets you know where their head is. I mean, we have Fink and I have a mutual friend who is in the Kamala Harris campaign that we can't say his name. And we won't say his name because we don't want to throw anyone under the bus. But the thing is, the inside that campaign, they don't have a lot of confidence themselves.
That's 3 weeks.
Yeah, and they've been feeling that it ain't gonna happen. What I see happening, the language that I see happening, is basically people ginning up the fundraising mechanisms so they can maximize their take home pay from the campaign.
Right. I mean, there should be no reason.
Almost nothing to do with the reality of the case.
There should be no reason that Camilla is having to work this hard to get a minority vote to turn out to run for her. She should be a historical figure, just the same way as Barack was. And there should be no reason why she's having to work this hard. I mean, we have Muslims, clerics who are now endorsing Trump. We have Jewish people endorsing Trump. He's being endorsed by all the different areas. And I think a lot of it has to do with the whole McDonald's, stunt he pulled, and I think that was really brilliant. And I think a lot of it has to do with him, like just, he's self-demeaning to himself on stage and everything. I think people want a regular, that's what it was in 2016. That's what they wanted. They wanted a regular Joe, Joe the plumber kind of billionaire to run their country. And 2020 happened. COVID just, threw all the rules out. And basically, the vote by mail, all the different rules that were all changed because of COVID, there's no chance for him to win. Now we're back to resetting the table. I think that since the table has been reset now the way it was in 2016, people are going back to wanting the same guy that they elected back then to finish the job that he started. And I think that's where we're at right now.
And Scott, you said that you don't understand how Kamala's not running away with the minority vote. Well, if you're referring specifically to the black vote, let me say with all due respect, and I don't mean to judge you, but I don't think you're black, right? I read an article this morning in the Wall Street Journal about how the HBCUs, the historically black colleges and universities, massive efforts going on for these campaigns, getting together and as a group, filling out registration cards, doing phone banks, going to the polls, doing the absentee ballots, inviting people to, driving people to the polls, whatever. Massive, basically, campaign parties on campuses. And this whole article is saying, look, this may be the secret to the Kamala campaign. I don't know how many students there are at HBCU, but I would wager that 95% plus of whoever comes off an HBCU campus as a voter, they're voting for Kamala. So that's really energized the way the Wall Street Journal said it was.
I disagree with that because, whenever you look at Biden, he's defunded a lot of the HBCUs. Why Trump funded them over and over again.
Do you really think the students there know that?
No, I know.
What the students know is that Joe Biden promises to cancel their student loans despite what the Supreme Court says.
I don't think
they don't know
about that. I think the professors and not everybody else in the community.
Look, we can theorize about everything in the world, but I'll tell you that history shows us this isn't the first time we've had these kind of student pushes to do whatever. You remember MTV's Rock the Vote and stuff like that?
Yeah, they're doing it. Good. Heck, the NFL is doing it.
Right. And they try to recruit these kids to come in and vote. And what do the kids do, Greg?
They don't vote.
They don't vote. I've got decades worth of statistics that show it.
That's right. And don't forget, executive order from Joe Biden a handful of months ago directing agencies of the United States government in a get out the vote campaign under the auspices of everybody should vote. But where is this happening? It's not happening in the red strongholds. It's happening in the blue strongholds. The entirety of what the U.S. government has been directed to do by Joe Biden is a get out the vote effort, taxpayer funded, and mandated by the Biden administration. It is a get out the blue vote campaign. How many millions will that bring out? I don't know, but it doesn't take that many millions to win.
And well, the thing is, though, I'm telling you, they've done this every cycle for decades. This one may be a bit more effective, but the problem is that it's if they tripled it, it wouldn't be enough to make a difference because the kids don't vote.
20,000 votes in Wisconsin, 14,000 votes, 60,000 votes in Michigan. Whatever the numbers were in 2020, it's gonna be that close. It's not going to take that many to throw this one way or the other. I'm not predicting that that's going to be enough. I'm just saying these things are happening.
Yeah. I didn't
Not to mention, here's another thumb on the scale. Facebook, social media, Google, and the placement of ads and reminders to vote. I've gotten a handful of things on my social media feeds going, oh, have you voted yet? Well,
No,
I'm pretty
exactly.
certain that my profile, being a white male, 59-year-old Republican, I'm probably not getting as many as a 25-year-old college student might be getting, right? So social media, the placement of not only their own get out the vote campaigns, but the
Right.
posts of other people. When you put social media and big tech thumb on the scale, whatever happened 4 years ago is ancient history. This is new.
Okay,
I'm
but
talking about the effort.
but
It's
the
been
parts
going on. I'm talking about the effort. The magnitude of the effort is new.
I get what you're saying, but the different but the where the wheel always falls off is on the way to the polls. It's one thing to convert to change people's minds, all right, to influence people, to get people to adopt a certain position. It's an entirely different thing to get them to load up in the car and go to the poll.
Well, in the
Then
case of college campuses, the voting booths are on campus now.
it
Let's
doesn't
go to
matter.
the
on
student
campus, yeah.
union. Pizza, free pizza outside. Hey, while you're
Again,
here, here's your
it
slice of
sounds
pepperoni. I'll give you another one on your way out of the ballot booth. Come on.
sounds like a great idea, but it never works out.
Well,
It
I hope
never
it doesn't
works
work
out.
this year, but it's
We're
the effort's
gonna find
underway
out.
massively.
Well, not only will we find out tomorrow, we'll find out in probably about a month when the state of Florida updates their database and get so that we have the actual voter history, of who showed up. And I will bet you you're going to find that they didn't move the needle on those kids hardly any.
Well, let's see. I hope you're right.
Well, I think
I fear
the
you're
election
not.
here is it's right around the corner here tomorrow, and I mean I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I feel good. I've never been this relaxed going into a message. Maybe I'm just so pounded in the head with all this ridiculousness that I just desensitized to it at this point. But it just doesn't feel like it's going to be what we've had in the last two cycles.
I don't think it is. So,
Well, we'll know next week.
yes, we will.
We will know next week.
We're not going to know tomorrow. We're not going to know Wednesday or
come on,
Thursday.
we might know a little
No,
bit of
we
it
won't.
tomorrow.
No, we won't.
I mean, Scott, you still good with your prediction of last week of 300
Absolutely.
electoral votes, or you think more?
No, I think there's going to be 300 electoral votes, and then Trump's going to win the popular vote.
Hope you're right.
And Mike, do you have any addition to yours from the last segment?
It's a coin toss. I'm not even going to bother.
Okay.
I fear that Kamala is going to pull it out, but who the hell knows?
As far as the U.S. Senate goes, I mean, what do y'all think? Who's going to win the Senate?
It all comes down to Montana, but I think the Republicans are going to have a majority of one.
Okay. I think they'll probably pick up 2 seats in the Senate, which will give them a majority of one. What about the House? What do y'all think?
That one's, believe it or not, tougher.
What?
I think I think they extend their lead in the House.
I think we're probably picking up 8 seats.
Yeah, I think we're going to pick up, and I think we're going to pick up more Senate seats than you think too. I think there's an outside chance we're going to pick up California.
I hope you're right.
I think there's an outside chance we're going to pick up California.
Oh, come on, you're smoking something they're trying to make legal in Florida. If you believe that.
No, but what's his name? The baseball player. God dang it,
Greg Litton.
No, the guy that's the guy that's winning over in California.
Okay, yeah, the baseball player is winning. The congressman.
He's not a congressman. He's never been anything, but he's about to be he's about to be a senator.
Okay. You gotta look him up.
So, God dang it! No, I can't believe I can't say his name.
I gotta find the internet here real quick.
Well, I think that this is going to be a very close election. I also think there's a lot of people, not huge numbers, and not in percentage terms, but I think there's a lot of people that are going to show up and vote for or against Trump. And nobody's going to vote really for Kamala. It's going to be either for or against Trump. But they're going to skip the down ballot. And that's, of course, a problem, because if Trump does get elected, but the Republicans do not have the House and Senate, It's going to be very difficult for Donald Trump to govern. And if the Democrats manage to get the House, don't be surprised if there is impeachment 3.0 based on the felony convictions that have already occurred against Donald Trump. They may not have been related to his office, but I will predict right now on the record, if there is a Republican minority in the House, meaning that the Democrats are in charge, Donald Trump will be impeached within the first, 12 months.
Well, if Adam Schiff
wins over what he's already done, not of what he would do, of what he's already done. He'll be impeached within 12 months. Probably really within 6.
If Adam Schiff wins the Senate race in California against Garvey, that's the name we're trying to find out just a second ago.
Never mind. That's Garvey was last time I looked at that, Garvey was competitive, and now he's not. So
yeah, it's a 20-point square.
Yeah, he was competitive a while back, but and here's what I consider competitive. NPR thought he might win. That was competitive. But so yeah, I don't think it's going to be us. I don't think that, number one, there's no way the Democrats are going to get a 2/3 majority in the Senate, so it's done.
But that doesn't stop an impeachment. They weren't going to get 2/3 in the previous two. You can still get impeached in the House by a simple majority. Doesn't mean he's going to be convicted in the Senate. No, that's not going to happen. But he'll be impeached by the House if the Democrats take it.
We impeached Joe Biden, and he wasn't even confident enough to defend himself.
We didn't impeach Joe Biden.
We just didn't go. It just didn't go anywhere. It just didn't go anywhere. We impeached Mayorkas, and we tried to get Biden, and it just didn't go anywhere.
Right.
But like I said, it's not going to make a difference.
Well, the impeachment alone makes a difference.
Yeah.
There's never been an impeachment conviction, ever. Not against Andrew Johnson, not against Bill Clinton, not against Donald Trump, and not against Donald Trump.
But you see, here's the other side of what you're saying, though. If they manage to get enough of a majority in the House to have an impeachment, which I don't think is going to happen, but
they only need a majority of 1, Scott.
I don't think they're going to have that. I think they're going to have a minority of 20.
Well, obviously, I said if the Democrats have a majority, obviously if the Democrats are in the minority, he's not going to be impeached. But if the Democrats take the House, Donald Trump will be impeached within 12 months and probably within 6.
What I'm saying is that by the time that could possibly happen, we'll have the grown-ups in New York will have had a chance to look at some of those criminal convictions, and those things are going to get tossed. That is the last bastion of liberal credibility. That case right there is what they have left is wrapped up in that case, and when it blows up in their face, it's over. That, I think, honestly, is the closest thing we'll have to the end of the Democrat Party.
But remember, part of being a Democrat is never having to acknowledge you were wrong and never having to say you're sorry. They'll simply move on.
The partisans are like that, but I'm telling you that the rank and file are not.
Right, but the partisans have the press on their side, and the press will make sure that the propaganda is such that, technicality by a bunch of conservative activist judges who couldn't see Donald Trump see justice. It's going to be spun in a partisan manner.
Well, that'll be very interesting for them to say that in New York, because they don't have partisan conservative judges in New York.
I don't think it's going to be the New York appellate court, because, by the way, the Supreme Court of New York is actually not the top court in New York. It's kind of an interesting thing. The Supreme Court is actually a low-level court in New York.
Really?
The appellate court, they're not going to overturn that. It's going to be the federal courts that ultimately do that.
The federal courts don't have jurisdiction. It is going to be the appellate court.
They most certainly do, because and I'm going to tell you the angle they do, and that is that the Constitution mandates a Republican, lower R, form of government. And so if the government is corrupt, if the constitutional rights of the defendant, in this case Donald Trump, were violated, which they would be, then the Supreme Court, as any federal court, would suddenly have jurisdiction. It's going to go through the appellate process in New York, and Donald Trump will remain convicted. Then it will move over to the federal courts, and it is at that point that they'll go overturn.
The way that you know that it's not going to go that way, that it's going to get tossed at the New York's appellate courts, is the same reason that Letitia James case is getting tossed in the New York appellate courts.
Well, let's see what happens. And
yeah,
if it happens your way, I'll buy you lunch. Happens my way, you buy me lunch.
So
Not
I'll
a
buy
bet,
you a steak.
just a friendly
I'll buy you a
agreement.
steak.
There we go. Well, guys,
Sure.
we'll go ahead and call it a night here real quick. It's been a good talk here this evening. And Scott, tell everybody how they can find us and like us and everything.
Well, you can. We're all over Facebook and all over Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. The big thing that we need you to do, though, especially on the social media platforms, make sure that you like and subscribe us, even if you've done it before. We do not watch our language. We're not, we don't conform to the way that the social media companies want us to guard our language, to not say hurtful, misogynistic or whatever political, words up. So the algorithms work against us. You could like us one week and never see us again if you don't continue to actively keep doing that. So please like and subscribe so that we can continue to deliver this great content to you.
And with that, you guys have a wonderful evening.
Thanks
for staying tuned to Political Matrix News.